town board meeting, February 2nd, 2023. I'd like everyone to please stand for the pledge of allegiance and also for a moment of silence for the Sayreville, New Jersey councilwoman Eunice Wumfor, who was murdered yesterday. Okay, thank you. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Before we go out to public comment, I'd just like to welcome a special guest we have here with us tonight. We have Miss Victoria Cousins. Yep, she's a Monmouth Woodbury senior. She's here representing a government class, and she's going to be writing a paper. And she stopped by today to see our town board meeting. And I just want to welcome Victoria.
She's gonna make a speech.
Welcome.
Yes, she said she was fine. Okay, so public comment on any agenda items. Anybody have anything? Sure. Come on. Before you say anything, do we have a speaker or a microphone for there?
It's there.
That's it.
It's there.
I don't know.
It just,
Alright,
it wasn't.
I don't see
Turn it on.
I don't see it.
Just gonna hold it down
Hold it
until it
down.
turns red. There you go.
There we go.
Thank you. It's fine, I'll just look at it. Giddy,
I don't think it's on.
There it is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
bring it
on
down.
now.
Sorry.
Bring it.
Hello? Oh,
There you
there we
go.
go, alright. Thank you. Hi. Good evening, everybody. Rachel Bruce, Hannah Mills. First off, I just wanted to just make a quick remark regarding the new business item, Introductory Law 1 of 2023, which is in relation to the volunteer firefighter and ambulance property tax exemption. I just wanted to say that I think this is a great idea. I know that the village had implemented a similar measure earlier this year, and Supervisor Burke had spoken back in 2022 about in introducing something at the town level. I think this is great. I just wanted to ask, I know that Supervisor, you had mentioned something about potentially speaking with the school district as well, Cornwall and Wonder Woodbury. Has there been any progress or update on that? I understand that, town can only handle town things, the school can only handle school things, but if it's possible to do, I think that would be a great issue as well if this law goes through.
Yep, absolutely. We've been in contact. I've been speaking with all the school districts, and it's something that we're going to continue to work on and try to get it implemented there also.
Great.
All right?
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Cheshire.
No, you can leave it on. Thank you. Anyone else?
Can I make a comment? Okay.
I just want, yeah.
Okay, thank you. It's actually not a comment, but.
Is this on agenda items or is this something?
So it's regarding the library, and I know you had a 5 o'clock, meeting with them, so I was wondering, that's what I was gonna ask, can I speak about the library?
Sure, sure, of course.
Alright. Hi, my name is Martha Lopez, and I'm from Highland Mills. I've come here today to speak about an issue that has unfortunately been going on for quite some time. I know I'll have an unpopular opinion because, let's face it, libraries are awesome, but I feel compelled to share my views with the board nonetheless. Woodbury is a small town with a population of a little over 12,000, I believe, right? About 12,100 residents. Within this small town, there are 2 libraries, Central Valley and Highland Mills. In addition to these 2 libraries, there are also Monroe, Chester, Washingtonville, Cornwall libraries that are all within a 10-mile radius. Libraries are amazing. They foster literacy, create healthy communities, support culture and creativity, and provide important services to our community and its residents. Yet, as a concerned taxpayer, I would like to know how we can justify paying for 2 libraries within a 1.2-mile radius of each other. According to the Washington Post, library advocates, and countless other organizations, library use has been on a steady decline across the nation. What they call critical decline began way before the pandemic and has nothing to do with funding, as they found that most funding either remained the same during this period or increased. Despite this funding, in-person library usage remains at an all-time low. Yet, it's been mentioned that Woodbury has seen a significant increase in library usage. I would dare say that it would be totally disingenuous to compare these numbers to the last 3 COVID years, because anything more than 0 looks and sounds spectacular on paper. The Institute for Museum and Library Services finds that over the past decade, there has been a decline in visits per capita to libraries nationwide. They stated that the average American rarely sets foot, if ever, into any library. Libraries provide many services, but the most important service is lending books. Therefore, funding 2 libraries is not a sound economical decision. Let me clarify that statement. The fact that ebooks and other streaming services are now the main method of acquiring books and movies, coupled with the fact that attendance is significantly down, it doesn't make sense to continue to have 2 virtually empty libraries in town when there are so many others close by. We should not have to pay salaries for 2 locations, benefits, property taxes, lights, heating, etc., when our libraries are so underutilized. If you ask me, there's so much we can do with the Highland Mills location, which would better serve our community. There's also the issue of the nearly $500,000 slush fund I keep hearing about. As a taxpayer, I have a problem with this amount of money being held in a slush fund. From what I understand, it's for a capital improvement project. But my question is, to what building? To the privately owned Central Valley Library building or to the town building? Although I understand that the private structure is used for public purposes, I would like to know, if we invest this money into a capital improvement in that location, will we then own a stake in it? If the building should eventually sell, down the line, if it should sell, does that money get returned to the town? Or will the capital improvements be for the town-owned Highland Mills Library? I believe we taxpayers should know beforehand where our money is going, and we should definitely have a say as to where and how that money is used. To sum this all up, I want to stress my love for libraries and state that I support and value the critical role they play in our communities. I love the content coming out of the library, although I do believe that we need to include more adult-oriented programming as well. I do not believe that we need 2 libraries in such a small town, when there are so many others within a 10-mile radius. I would like more transparency for Woodbury's taxpayers on the purpose of the $500,000 slush fund, and would like to see discussions on how we can better serve our community with the Highland Mills location. Please understand, I did not come here today to offend anyone, but as a concerned taxpayer. Thank you for giving me this time.
Thank you very much. Your comments. There's a lot of information that you just provided us all with. Thank you very much for standing up and saying all of that. There's a lot of questions that you had in your presentation that we will have some more input in. I believe we'll get some answers. We're in an ongoing conversation now. There was a 5 o'clock meeting. I wasn't in attendance this evening for that, but the rest of the board was. And those are all questions, I believe, that are part of everything that we're trying to put together moving forward. Your comments are all, I think, personally, I think they're on point. They deserve to be responded to. I know our attorney here is Joe McKay. I don't know if Joe, there's something you'd like to say at this time about it, or if you'd just like to let it sit. We can get back to those. We have what you said, and we can talk about it at a later time. All right? Because when you speak about other libraries, I think it's a good point. But I think people also have to remember that there's 4 schools in our Monroe Woodbury School District that are in Woodbury also. Smith Cove Elementary, Central Valley Elementary, the Monroe Woodbury Middle School, and the Monroe Woodbury High School.
And they all have libraries.
And it's all on Woodbury property. So that's all taken into consideration also.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on. If anybody has any other questions or anything else, okay. Administrative business, I have a motion and a second to accept, receive the minutes of the meeting held January 19th, 2023.
Make a motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Alright, motion passed. Approval of abstract. Desiree, abstract number 3, please.
Abstract 3 contains vouchers 230141 through 230207. For the record, voucher 230139 and 230140 were voided due to technical difficulties. And the total of the abstract is $234,208 even.
Okay. Could I have a motion and a second to approve the abstract, number 3 as read?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, budget modification to the 2022 budget. Desiree, could you please read the budget's, modifications for, 2022 budget?
Certainly. The first one's for various departments by increasing a 1220.405 CPA by $519.25 and decreasing a 1220.404 outsourced payroll by $519.25. Increasing a 1620.473 senior center repairs / operation and maintenance by $66.76 and decreasing a 1620.448 miscellaneous by $66.76. Increasing a 7620.466 expenditures of donations by $17. Increasing a 599 appropriate fund balance by $17. Increasing a 7620.403 electricity by $364.05. Decreasing a 7620.100 personnel services by $364.05. Increasing a 1650.401 central telephone by $141.66. Decreasing a 1640.400 central garage by $141.66. The next is for the police department by increasing B 3120.463 software maintenance consultant by $1,872.78. Decreasing B 3120.418 radio rental by $1,870.78. Decreasing B 3120.200 equipment, cars, motorcycles by $779 and decreasing B 9010.800 state retirement by $779. And the last one for 2022 for this meeting is for the library by increasing L 7410.411 office supplies by $50 and decreasing L 7410.465 processing supplies by $50.
Okay, as is the usual case, these modifications are to address the end of the year over expenditures on specific line items. So with that said, can I have a motion and a second to approve the modification as read?
Make motion.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
I'll abstain.
Yes, thank you. Alright, budget mod to the 2023 budget, Desiree, could you read that?
Sure. For the police, it's increasing B 3306, state aid, homeland security by $39,223, B 3120.108, OT, tactical grant by $14,750, B 3120.408, tactical equipment by $24,473. For the assessor's office, increasing A 1355.402, special mailings by $2,139 and decreasing A 1355.462, Article 7 appraisals by $2,139. Camp Res increasing A 7110.430, day camp expenditures by $6,197, A 599 appropriate fund balance by $6,197. For the police again, increasing B 3120.448, K-9 grant. Sorry. Typo, please hold. By $10,507. B 3120.491, K-9 equipment for maintenance by $2,500. B 5131 interfund transfer by $2,507. SMB 599 by $2,507, and SMB 9901.900 transfer to other funds by $2,507. And the supervisor's office increasing A 1220.462 computer supplies checks by $100 and decreasing A 1220.411 office supplies by $100.
That's it?
That's it.
Alright, the modification, the two modifications for the police department are to recognize grant funds that were received. The modification for the assessor's office is to account for the mailing discussed at the last meeting. The modification for Camp Res is to bring forward unexpended funds from fiscal year 22 to fiscal year 23. And the modification for my office is to cover an over expenditure for the purchase of accounts paying checks. So with that said, can I have a motion and a second to approve the modifications as read and explained?
I'll second.
Okay.
I'm sorry, was that Councilman Corey and,
Finnegan.
thank you. Sorry, the two of you sound a little bit alike down there, so.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Old business, I have an extra item, and that is to advertise for letters of interest for the library board, during the end of work, of business day to be received by the end of business day 2/24/23, February 24th. Okay.
You're authorizing
We're
me
all-
as town
we
clerk
authorize- yes.
to advertise for letters of
Are we
interest.
authorizing, is that?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
okay.
Need a motion.
I'll make a
Have a
motion.
motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
So that was
Finnegan.
Lori and Ethel. Thank you. Am I saying that wrong?
Finnegan.
Finnegan.
Jesus. I even spelt this.
You know,
I hope not.
microphone.
1, 2.
One,
Thank you,
two.
sorry.
Not even close.
Sorry, you guys sound a little bit alike, I'm sorry.
Raise your voice, Tim.
I apologize.
Deeper voice.
I deeply apologize. You know, I have a problem with minutes, I'm sorry.
Victoria, leave that out of your report. Okay, new business, moving on to new business, introductory local law 1 of 2023, volunteer firefighter and ambulance property tax exemption. Last year, late last year, the governor signed new legislation in relation to property tax property exemptions for volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers. The legislation requires all taxing jurisdictions that offer property tax exemptions to these individuals to transition to a newly authorized statewide exemption by December 2025, at which time existing laws relating to this type of exemption will automatically repeal. The statewide exemption allows for the option to provide a property tax exemption of up to 10% to volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers. This would be valid on property used exclusively for residential purposes. In order to be eligible, the volunteer must live in Woodbury and meet a minimum requirement between.
Was that you, Councilman Finnegan?
Yeah.
My lord.
This would be,
Who's?
Goes.
this would be valid on property used exclusively for residential purposes. In order to be eligible, the volunteers must live in Woodbury and meet a minimum requirement of between 2 and 5 years, an amount the town board must determine. Additionally, the taxing authority can offer a lifetime exemption to volunteers with at least 20 years of service, as long as they maintain their primary residence in the county they have served. Another permission is to allow unmarried surviving spouses of eligible volunteers to retain the exemption. The Association of Towns has provided a sample law which includes the lifetime option, but not the surviving spouse option. Clerk Desiree has provided a copy of the New York Conference of Mayors sample law, which includes the surviving spouse option. The board needs to decide the following. Therefore, number 1, what % exemption it will offer? How many years for the minimum qualification requirement? Number 3, if it wants to offer life exemption option, and number 4, if it wants to offer the unmarried surviving spouse option. So, what I'll say to this is that we'll just start with the first one, and then we'll just, as the board, make a determination right here at the beginning.
Someone will try this
Let's see if it, alright, sorry about that. The board needs to decide the following. Number 1, what % exemption it will offer. It's up to 10%. I'm going with, I would like to see 10%.
I do too.
Me as
We'll
well.
start, we'll do is we'll start at in the end there. Councilman, Gloria.
10%.
Councilman, we're gonna leave I'm gonna leave Councilman Finnegan.
Yeah, I'm gonna abstain from all these
There you
votes.
go. Oh, yeah. Councilmember Luciano.
10%.
Councilman Etzel.
10.
Okay, so it's 10% from number 1. Number 2, how many years for a minimum qualification requirement? It's between, we can go between 2 and 5 years. That's a determination that, I personally feel that if a firefighter who lives in Woodbury and is willing to give that kind of time and do, for what he does and what they provide the person, that at the very least, at the 2-year minimum, they should be granted this. So, Councilman Flory,
2-year minimum.
Councilmember Luciano,
2 years.
Councilman Edsel.
3.
Okay, I go with 2 years, so it's 3, the 1 abstain, 3 for 2 years and 1 for 3 years.
Well, you're not officially voting on it, you're just.
No, we
Oh, we're just
this
gonna
has
do
to
it,
go to
okay.
public hearing. We
Yeah,
have
you have to
to
go,
vote.
right,
Okay.
Joe needs to know this information, I'm sorry,
Oh, I'm
Attorney
sorry.
McKay needs to know this information so he can draft the law.
So, how would, this go out now? Would it just go out as 2 years?
You keep going through the process, I'm taking my notes. There's a draft that goes already provided. I'll revise the draft based upon your consensus tonight. I'll distribute it, and then eventually there'll be the public hearing.
Thank you. Number 3, if,
I do have one other question though on that. Is there a minimum number of calls that the person has to make?
They'll have to be LoSAP, right, that's right.
Yes, they have to be active, and the fire chief would have to sign off, I believe annually, I don't know if y'all can hear me, I try to speak up. I believe annually, the fire chief currently provides, a list to the assessor's office of all the individuals that are active throughout the year. I don't know how the ambulance does it, cause I'm more socially, closely associated with fire than I am with ambulance. But I would assume that they also provide a list to the assessor of eligible individuals. So yes, that's the answer.
okay, number 3, do we want to offer the lifetime exemption option? I would say yes. Councilman Flory,
Yes.
Councilmember Luciano,
Yes.
Councilman Edsel.
Yes.
Okay, number 4, if it wants to offer the unmarried surviving spouse option, yes. Councilman Flory,
Yes.
Councilmember Luciano,
Yes.
and Councilman Edsel.
How's that determined?
If it
20
wants
years of service, correct?
No, unmarried spouse, what's an unmarried spouse?
So
What
if the
determines-
firefighter
It's an
dies,
No, were they saying
unremarried
this,
spouse.
Unremarried spouse, yeah.
unremarried, sorry.
That's how it was stated in the,
is that
Yeah,
an actual spouse of the firefighter?
yes, that has not remarried.
Okay, it's not a living companion?
No.
Okay, then I'm alright. I read it as somebody that we were just living with.
Oh,
I think both their names have to be on the deed.
Okay.
I can read what it says in the NICOM sample law, I'm sorry, can you help me? Do you want me to read what it says in the NICOM sample
brief?
law? It's brief, yes,
Okay.
and I'm a fast reader. The unremarried surviving spouse of a deceased enrolled member as certified by the authority having jurisdiction is qualified to continue to receive the exemption as long as the deceased volunteer had been enrolled of at least 20 years and the deceased volunteer and unmarried spouse had been receiving the exemption at the time of his or her death.
what do you think, Howard?
Yeah, I'm alright.
I read it as we become unmarried once the spouse passes on, you're unmarried. And you're saying.
That's usually what happens.
I
when
was,
a spouse
I
dies.
was, I
You're
was
saying
thinking
like
that it was,
be like a
was
girlfriend or
a significant
living
other.
significant
Yeah.
other.
How I read it was not remarried, correct?
Not remarried.
Yeah.
Right, once
Yeah.
the spouse gets remarried, then
Yes.
the exemption is
They
gone,
lose
that's
the
how I,
exemption. Oh,
how I
okay.
interpret it,
Alright.
yes.
Okay.
The, Joe, do you have everything with that, all 4?
Yes, on the third one, the lifetime exemption, I'm just looking, more than 20 years gets a lifetime exemption, that's a yes?
Yeah.
And just to answer the question that was asked, the draft local law, just simply says there are eligibility requirements, but they're pretty minimal. You have to be a volunteer firefighter or ambulance worker, live in the jurisdiction, own a residential property, and that the volunteer firefighter or ambulance worker is certified by the authority having jurisdiction as an enrolled member of such incorporated company. And that they must meet the minimum service requirements established by the jurisdiction. I assume the fire company and the ambulance corps have some minimum standards? So there's
Do we see
minimum-
those minimum standards?
Five, I don't know about any of those, 5 is 10% of the call line. If we're going off LoSAP, correct, Deborah?
Yeah, they get different,
They get different points for drills, they get different points for calls, they get different points for, activities like work details, parades, things like that. And it accumulates, and once they reach 50 points, then they're considered a active fireman for the year. And there's a running list every month that the firemen have, so they know the status of them, so they can't say, well, I didn't know. And they have to meet some of the OSHA too.
And does the ambulance corps keep the same?
I don't know, I do the reporting for the fire, so that's how I can speak to that or attest to that fact. I don't know how the ambulance does it.
They used to.
They probably used to, but I don't know, I personally do the fire reporting, so I don't know about the ambulance.
Do we wanna ask them?
well, I mean, regardless of, they have to meet whatever the minimum is, so, you know.
Alright,
They have to have some requirement.
They have to have some type of requirement, and if they don't have one, I mean, they currently have,
You currently have a law that exists on your books, so they have to meet the requirement of the existing law with the
oh, alright,
assessor's
okay,
office.
okay.
That law, because of this legislation that was signed late last year, will automatically no longer be able to be in existence as of December 2025. So this is the law that the state recommends we put forth to replace that.
And this is not the same thing as what the village voted on back in.
No, what the village voted on previously, if you want me to answer that, was the current law has a cap on how much off your assessment can be, which is $500. The village adopted a local law subject to permissive, mandatory referendum that would increase that by another 500. This law is 10%, which would be more
Way
than,
more.
depending on your assessment.
10% of your assessed value, correct?
10% of your assessed
Not on
value,
10,
so
10, okay.
if your house is assessed for $97,000, then you would get a reduction of $9,700. So your tax would be only based on whatever that math is. Sorry, don't have it on top of my head. I should have picked an easier number. $100,000 and you would get 10%, right? You get 10% off, so your general fund wouldn't be for like special districts, but your general fund would be only taxed for $90,000 instead of
It
$100,000.
comes up to about 70 to 80,000.
Yeah, and it depends on what your assessment is.
No, I mean
Oh.
the total cost to the town,
Oh, well, the other taxpayers absorb that difference.
Right.
That's something,
but
yeah.
that's what it.
Alright, so I need a motion and a second to authorize Attorney Joe McKay to draft a local law repealing chapter 277, article 5 of the town code entitled Taxation, number 1, volunteer fire departments and volunteer ambulance services exemption, and replace it with a new article 5 entitled Volunteer Firefighter and Volunteer Ambulance Worker Real Property Tax Exemption pursuant to section 466A of the New York Real Property Tax Law, of the New York State Real Property Tax Law. Can I have a motion and a
I'll
second?
make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then we all.
Councilman Finnegan, if you would say
Abstain.
that. Okay, thank you. He said he was going, I just wanted to verify.
Good job.
Thank you.
Second is to, appoint, is lead agency, unlisted action under secret.
Unless, right, Joe?
Unlisted. Motion to declare the
The motion to the.
town board lead agency and to type it as unlisted under secret.
Right, do you have the standard resolution?
I don't have it with me, but yes, it's a
Right,
standard
so
resolution.
the board's gonna designate itself as lead agency under secra, classify it as an unlisted action, schedule a public hearing.
I have that separate.
Okay, alright, so,
I mean, if you wanna do it all at once. Whatever you need to.
no, that's fine, so we're gonna do it in two motions?
Yeah.
Alright, so that's the first motion.
You already did
I'll
one.
make a motion.
I'll make a can I have a motion and a second to authorize,
I'll make a motion.
yeah, under secret.
Got a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Abstain. And abstain, one. And number 3, I need a motion, the third is a motion, the second, to schedule a public hearing to be held at 7:30 PM on February 16, 2023, to entertain public comments on introductory local law 1 of 2023 entitled Taxation, to provide for a real property tax exemption for volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers pursuant to section 466-A of the New York State Real Property Tax Law. Motion and second.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain. Okay, so with that being said, we move on to public comment. Does anybody out have anything to public comment?
Good evening, Maria Hunter. First of all, thank you, Martha, for your comments this evening. Very well stated, so I appreciate the comments that you made tonight. I also want to thank the town board members and Attorney McKay for the meeting at 5 o'clock this evening, with the work session with the Library Board of Trustees. All of you held great restraint, and your comments, I appreciate what you said. And what I mean by great restraint, all of you were professional. You didn't get ruffled by the comments that were rudely made to some of you. So as a resident of this town, I want to thank you for doing what you did this evening and to keeping that professional level high where it belongs in this town. I have a quick question, because after that work session, I don't believe it was still being videotaped. Their attorney, I guess his name was Dan, was asked a question by one of the trustees: can I still be on the board of trustees and be acting president? He said, and I heard it, of course you can. The town board has no jurisdiction over you and the board of library directors. Which leads into my question that you're asking for letters for people who are interested in the library board. Whose library board? The town's library board? Or is this the Woodbury Public Library Board of Trustees? Because now what you're saying tonight, and what I heard during the work session, what was stated after the work session, I'm a little confused. Because I know 2 of us have put letters in, and I know you've been postponing appointments. But what's the use of asking for letters again, having interviews again, when their attorney said that this board has no jurisdiction on appointing anyone to the board, the Woodbury Public Library Board of Trustees? I'm confused, as I think some of you are as well. I know, I can see Attorney McKay looking over at me. What's the purpose of putting out there, asking for letters of interest, when their attorney and their board is not going to listen to what you say? And as a resident, that bugs me. It did,
Yeah.
the battery must have died, because I did have it on. But thank you to the board members that were here tonight, and it's very concerning. You're saying one thing, and I understand what you're doing as a board, but to have that attorney tell board president, trustee Schmidt, oh, no problem, you're in. Woo! Mind blown.
I'm just wondering if what he was speaking of is until we appoint somebody new, she is still considered, on there, and that's why we're asking for more letters, to go over it. So I'm wondering if, I wasn't there and I didn't hear what you said, but I'm just saying.
All of you had left the room. Oh, let me see if it's still
I'm
working.
coming.
It's not working?
Give me a second, I'm wearing my AV hat.
It's on now.
talking anymore, so.
You're a very efficient deputy clerk.
That's not what I heard.
Deputy clerk, excuse me, town clerk.
Wow, that's two shots.
Actually, that's my title. But, it was after all of you had left, and they were still talking off into the corner there with, 3 of the trustees. And the question was asked, and I heard them say, town board can't, it's not your jurisdiction. So I'm confused, I'm sure all of you are confused, I know Attorney McKay is shaking his head over there, because I know what I heard this evening at that meeting. When they were told that you can't have the town covering the payroll and everything, I'm not gonna go into all, but it's just mind-boggling how the director and the trustees of the library are not taking responsibility.
Well, I just know like that they had said if they do become their own entity, then it is the community that votes on who's going to be on the board of trustees. So I don't know how he could say that as of now, under the board, that would happen. So, like I said, it would probably have to be a conversation that our lawyers would have to have with her. But I can't see that being possible. Like I said, as of now, until we appoint somebody else, that, that maybe that's what he was talking about,
But for having any resident to go through put a letter in, going through the interview, and sitting there and listening to the library director ask questions, and then she's sitting here tonight and they don't understand the concept. Stay with Woodbury Town, or go on your own already, make a decision. Poop or get off the pot.
Thank you. Anyone else? So this is public comment, Joe.
I know.
Good.
That microphone keeps cutting out, Joe. There's something wrong with it.
Again, I was at the meeting that you guys had, it was great, but I have I'm just gonna go over a couple of questions, you don't have to answer anything, but, thank you very much. As you know, the library initiated it, and they went over to the state, they went over to the county, they went to James Schoolfus. So they started that part. The second, they said it 3 times at the meeting, Central Valley Library is theirs. I'm gonna ask, as a department head, what does that mean when my guys go over there? If something happens, who's responsible? Who do we do? What do we do? I think that has to be clarified, because they said it 3 times at the meeting, Central Valley Library is theirs. Do we still work there? Do we do what? So that's a question. The directive came back, they're the Woodbury Public Library. To me, they're a private entity. So how can we work for a private entity? How are the girls gonna go upstairs and do paperwork for a private entity? That's like me asking them to do my paperwork for my chimney sweep business or anybody else's business. I believe a lot of people, they leave a lot of hours on the table, that they don't work all the hours that they're allotted to. So that's money that they're saving that goes into their building fund. And I believe this year they put more money in their building fund. That's my money, it's all of our money. And I believe what Martha said, she hit a lot of points that I was gonna talk about. But again, they initiated it, and I believe kind of what they wanted. If they didn't want it, why did they go to James Schoolfus? Why did they go to this? Just to get somebody's name so they can call for a list where you have no control over? They can go up to that office tomorrow and have 3 full-time people. That's $100,000 a pop. And then you guys gotta worry about the 2% tax cap next year. Because then my budget, Maria's budget, whose ever other budget, has to go, is that fair? I don't think that's fair. And again, there's money in their budget, they got 14 people. How much could ADP cost to do 14 people's payroll? They were making it sound like it's a lot of money. I don't think so. I know it's something you guys gotta really think about and do, but this is me as a taxpayer. It has to do nothing with the town. So, just wanna put that out there. Can I talk about bills and grounds now?
Not yet.
Okay.
You gotta
sit down and
I wanna talk to you about with your comments. Maybe you could, we can have a discussion, you and I, about, the work that you mentioned about all the work that was done by your crew at the library. So for the last since I've been on the board, 2021, 22, like in at the Central Valley Library, which they take ownership of. What was some of the work that was done the last year and a half?
New door was put in downstairs, new electrical, new lights outside, what else? New lights inside, we put a new kitchenette in there for them, clean up, do the carpets, stuff like that, that's what we've been doing. We did the outside, we painted the front doors and stuff, we did the whole deck outside, power washed it, new stain on the front deck. We repaired the step going down to the backyard that was gone, and we put a new step in for them. I think we kept the air conditioning going, so that went through the season, so that was good.
And what do we have going on there on a weekly basis?
Right now, we have cleaning. Ted goes there and cleans twice a week, does the garbage, cleans the bathrooms, does does vacuuming and stuff. And if they call us, we just had the boiler done for them. At the last meeting, they said about the boiler, so that's running good. So, we're keeping it going, but the question is, I didn't say it, they said it 3 times, it's their library. Where does the line stop?
Then you can also talk about the trees that were taken down.
I'm sorry, I forgot about the trees, yes.
And then this past summer, which is something that I don't think it's something for us to discuss as far as what we should or shouldn't have done, but this summer there was a water moratorium. The library at the Central Valley wanted to have things done, events at the Central Valley Library. They were told that they couldn't because there was a water moratorium. Representatives from the library came to both you and I and asked to move it up to the reservoir. It's not like it was something we had to think about or consider. It was absolutely, that's what we do. That's what we all have done as community members. So, as far as the 2% tax cap that you just brought up, one of the things that were done by, I can't say I'm the town supervisor and that's what I did, no. We all did, and previous supervisors have always done. You go to your department heads and you say, listen, this is what it is, we're all about the taxpayers. We're here, we represent, that's who elected us. We wanna stay within the 2% tax cap. It's our obligation. All of the department heads came in and met with us, stayed within the 2% tax cap, except for the library. They came in with an astronomical number. We did stay, but we stayed under the 2% tax cap anyway. So, we will see what happens moving forward, Joe.
No, these are mine, because I was here listening, and I had the same concerns as Martha and whatever her name is. Maria, sorry. But, let me go to Bills and Grounds, just so we have
No,
that.
it's not your,
Do you have a tape with you?
it's not even department head meeting.
Can I go to department head now?
Hold on. We will move on. Does anybody else have,
No, we did public comment.
No, there was somebody else. Okay, so we'll now move to, board member and department comments. So why don't we start with Joe?
Wait, I think he needs to go back that way.
Back out?
How's the
Make
meeting?
sure you stay your name.
How's the notes going on over there?
She's doing everything in shorthand, so she's okay. Just so you know, right now, we're in the senior center front entranceway, since we put all the new doors in. So we're painting, we put new doors in the bathrooms, we got new doors in the closet, we're painting, doing molding, new electrical, so that's an ongoing thing. I think tomorrow we should be just about buttoned up. Then, Monday we'll polish the floor up and make that look really pretty. From there, the other thing we did ACO, we had to do new soffits in the front. I guess there's some, squirrels and raccoons getting in there. We did some electrical work up there. Next week we'll be in Judge Hassan's office. We're gonna remodel Judge Hassan's office. It needs a little makeover because it's like, 30 years old in there. So we're gonna do new lights, some molding, new paint, stuff like that. And then we'll go back to finishing the floors. We stripped all the floors a couple weeks ago in the police station and in the courts and stuff. So now we'll go back, we'll mop them up, and then we'll put the sealer down and we'll put the wax down. So they'll be all nice for the rest of the season, because I don't think we're gonna get a winter, so that's good. Remember.
Hey Joe, you think you could go over to Washingtonville, we do some of the stuff in the court over there?
Sure.
There's painting,
If the board
Make
says
house
okay, no
calls.
problem.
nobody
board
ever
says
paints
okay,
my
no problem.
office.
It's a public building, why not?
Just remember, it's gonna be cold, really, really cold tomorrow. If you know anybody that's a senior or something, maybe give them a call, make sure everybody's okay. Anybody that has frozen pipes, just keep your faucets running a little bit tonight, so the water goes through. So, and that's all I got.
So Joe is,
water moratorium.
at the, Joe, at the senior center, in, Highland Mills Library, the bathrooms, 2 doors that are being installed, that was a nice touch.
Yeah, those are nice, nice doors.
And in the senior center, there's 2 doors that we're gonna be replacing also.
Yes, I did call a gentleman up today that does all our doors. We were gonna try to get them the same doors, but they're really, really expensive. So he's gonna come by in the near future, get some measurements, get some price to do brand new metal doors and with a little like 2x2 window. That's where we're at.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Can we have Maria Hunter come on?
Still on.
Beautification, we had a meeting tonight, we're moving forward, we're looking into purchasing additional snowflakes for all the utility poles that we've added this year. One of your questions, in December of 2021, beautification did purchase and did decorate Central Valley Library branch, just to add that to the things that we've done. And the electricity, the outlets that are on each side of the building, outside, underneath, that was done a few years back from the beautification committee as well, so that they can, allows them to put their decorations out that they had this past year. Just wanted to let you know that.
Yeah, but what I also want to add to both what Joe said, Martha Lopez, of course, and you, is that the libraries have never been neglected, they've never been, we have paid attention to their requests, we're there, we see it, and we've been working hand in hand.
Of course we have, and beautification, until we found out it was no longer town-owned property, Justin and myself would go down there, we pull the weeds, we put up the garbage, we leaf blowed, we tried to do the best we could to make that look nice over the years. Once everything settles and things possibly change, we may go back. But, and Tyler, you might wanna do the village board meeting, the last one, cause I got blasted for saying a comment about being a public building on private property. And trustee, President Schmidt said, well, Tyler said it's a public building and you can go on there, so just, your name's been thrown around, and just so, you might wanna take a look at the village board meeting.
Okay.
But other than that, beautification, we'll do what we do best, we're looking at, thinking already about the Memorial Day parade, what we have to do with decorations, and possibly get a float in the parade this year, so we're working on it.
Thank you.
You sure you wanna speak?
Chief Watson's here tonight. Chief, are you good?
I'm good.
He's always good.
He's good. Okay. We will move on to Attorney McKay, you're over there. Start with you.
Couldn't be better.
Really?
Couldn't be
You look great.
He had a great evening.
Okay, we'll move on to board member comments. Councilman Cole.
Just wanna thank everyone for coming out tonight. A few weeks ago, we had our first committee meeting for the National Night Out that we're working on. Want to thank everybody involved in that. We're got some foundational work done, and we're gonna continue working on that. It's really nice to see, the 3 emergency service departments come together, along with representatives from the village and from the police, from the fire department, Debbie and Dan from the ambulance. We had Miss Marissa from the Newburgh committee come over and give us a quick lesson on everything. It's moving along, so I'm excited about our next couple of meetings. We're getting some information, and that's all I got for that.
Thank you. Councilman Finnegan.
I don't have too much. I think tonight's meeting with the library is a step in the right direction. I think we'll try to figure all that out going forward, but a lot of good points were brought up tonight and definitely raised some questions. And I think this will be a nice local law for the volunteer firemen and ambulance. Obviously, as always, there's always need for volunteers, so come down and help out your community and have some fun. That's all I got.
Thank you very much, well said. Councilmember Luciano.
That was Tim, by the way, Douglas.
I was gonna ask, but I saw you talking, so
So I wanna bring up this Saturday, is the cleanup for Reese Across America. It's at 10:30 at the Cemetery of the Highlands. Last year, there was just a few, and I wanna say honestly, like senior citizens, and then maybe some Boy Scouts, myself and Lisa, to clean up the wreaths. People come and pick up trucks, you pick up the wreaths, you throw them in the pickup truck, throw it into the dumpster, you know, but it takes a long time. You're talking about over 900 wreaths that need to be cleaned up. So if anybody can show up, it's gonna be very, very cold on Saturday, so we can use your help cleaning up the wreaths. I, like Tim, you know, wanna thank this entire board.
Too.
Huh?
I like Tim
Okay,
too.
quiet. I wanna thank the board, you know, for bringing this up about the volunteer firefighters and ambulance, you know, just when I was doing the recruiting for the fire department, I mean, it is so hard to bring in people and keep people, and the biggest reason is a lot of people are moving down south, they're moving somewhere else because they can't afford to live here. So any kind of tax break, any kind of incentive we can do to bring volunteers in, you know, we can use it. So I'm happy that all of us on this board can collectively say that we know and we see that there's a huge issue here with volunteers. So anything we can do to help them out, you know, is major to me. And then the other thing is I wanna thank, you know, the board members and us, you know, library board members, the director of the library, the, you know, attorneys and all of us on the board for getting together and talking about the library and getting that ball rolling. You know, we all have difference of opinions and we see things differently. The fact is, you know, to keep it respectfully. And, you know, when I think about the Central Valley Library, you know, this came from a family that donated this building specifically because they wanted a library for their community. And I don't think that they wanted it to become this huge argument or fight between the townspeople. And, you know, sometimes when I hear people talk about it, it's almost like, you know, this person against that person, and it shouldn't be that way. You know, these people donated this building for this community because they love this community and they wanted things for the community. And so I think we all need to take everything, egos, everything aside, put it aside and realize that we're all trying to work together. Everybody on the board is trying to work together, the library, nobody's trying to get one over on the other. And we have to work together to figure it out for everybody, for the community. Because we're all Woodbury, we're all working on the same team, we're not fighting each other. So, you know, I think today was a huge door opening to all of us coming together and talking together and working together, you know, for Woodbury. And to just remember that, and, you know, I think we'll get further that way, so, thank you, everybody.
Where in the cemetery are you meeting? Cause it's pretty big.
I think we might be meeting over where they have the cemetery, the Highlands.
Where their office building is?
Yeah, last year when I went there, everybody was all over the place.
Right.
It was literally like 10:30, people were spread out, there was all different, you know, trucks, so if anybody has a pickup truck and they wanna help out, you know,
Bring your own gloves?
yeah, I think so.
I'm just just
I'm
asking
thinking you're not gonna
questions
be able to leave the house on Saturday
without
two
gloves.
pairs of gloves.
Yeah.
I was wearing long johns, jeans, the whole thing, and that was last year when it wasn't as cold, like, they're talking like 0 degrees. on Saturday.
I live across the street and I'll be home, so I was thinking about either coming over or you can come over to warm up if you like.
Hot cocoa?
Okay, Councilman Etzel.
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay. And you're good.
I'm good, yes.
All right, everyone, well, thank you for coming to our meeting tonight, town board meeting, and I'll take a motion and a second to adjourn.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Do not abstain.
Can I just bring you